This is the Palin Update on Saranet Radio. I'm Kevin Scholla.
Those who believe in Jesus as a Savior, having come as this humble baby in a manger, well, if that is our belief, we have that constitutional right to express it, to celebrate it.
Good tidings and great joy. Sarah Palin's red-hot Christmas book is doing very well, thanks to the massive amount of supporters that have been out there on the book tour greeting the governor. Today, we'll talk to Rachel Campos Duffy, who was at the book signing where all the books sold out. Campos Duffy is the wife of Congressman Scholla Duffy and a talented TV contributor. We're happy to have her here with us today. Battling the foul-mouthed Bashir and Cher, a brand new Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimpson is on the way, and just ahead our latest edition of Steel Resolve with Sarah Steelman. The first leg of Sarah Palin's book tour has come to a close, and it was a smashing success from the opening stop in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, which I attended, to the final stop in Minnesota. Fans just packed the venues to meet Governor Palin and get their copies of Good Tidings and Great Joy signed. One stop of particular note along the way was in Wisconsin, where our guest today had a chance to see Sarah Palin and also witness an outpouring like no other. We welcome to the Palin Update on Saranet Radio TV personality, wife of Congressman Scholla Duffy, and spokesperson for the Libre Initiative, Rachel Campos Duffy. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for having me on today.
So the big story in Wisconsin was all the books sold out, and not only at the Walmart where you got a chance to see Governor Palin, but in the whole town.
The whole town, Barnes & Noble, Sam's Club, and, a lot of people. I mean, one of the things I just loved about her is, she could have gone to Barnes & Noble, but she went to Walmart. She went to where the people really go and shop, and the place was just packed. People were lining up as early as 6 in the morning, and it just snaked around, and I got there pretty, late. I think I got there around 1, maybe 1, noon, 12:30 or 1, something like that. And she was as friendly and fresh as ever. She just seems to be getting energy from all the people that were there. There were no protesters either. I was, thinking that, our local paper was a little bit catty that day in the editorials, and I was thinking maybe something might happen, but I guess Wausau's a lot more conservative than people think.
Yeah, you always hear the comments, like you said, from the reporters. I heard some from some of the cameramen in Pennsylvania and whatnot, but you are right. And you love when they call her irrelevant, and then you go to these places and you can't find a parking space. People are in line, freezing in line for hours, but very irrelevant. Now, you went there to see Sarah Palin, of course, and express your appreciation toward her, but she greeted you with some complimentary words after seeing you on TV.
Yeah, that was so nice, actually. That morning I had zoomed off really, really early at the crack of dawn off to Madison, where we actually have a satellite hookup there, because I did a segment for Fox and Friends. I work for the Libre Initiative, as you mentioned, and we're an organization that we outreach to Hispanics, we educate, we empower them to, appreciate and understand the free market system and the system that's always been the ladder out of poverty and into the middle class and beyond for all Americans, but especially for Hispanics who are so very entrepreneurial and hardworking. And so that's what we do. And I had a segment on Fox and Friends talking about food stamps and sort of challenging liberal notions of compassion when it comes to entitlements, because I think in a lot of ways they are creating purposely a class of dependent Americans, particularly among the minority set. And so I had a segment where we challenged that and said, who's really compassionate? Those who want to make you comfortable in your poverty, or those who want to help you get out of it. And so I guess Sarah must have been getting ready for her book signing at Walmart, had catched a glimpse of it, and as soon as she saw me, she immediately came up and thanked me for, my outreach and my work with Libre in the Hispanic community, which is clearly a community that we, as conservatives, need to be constantly reaching out to.
Well, isn't that great? And it really is an important message. And, to simplify it, you're letting Hispanics know about the truth in what's going on for a change, instead of some of the propaganda that's thrown their way from the left. And Sarah Palin, of course, voted for Newt Gingrich in the primary for president in Alaska this past election cycle. And, he called Barack Obama the food stamp president, and there's no doubt about it. And they try to scream racism when you talk about this, but there are more whites on food stamps than any other race. So it's really it's important for everybody, and we're glad you're out there talking about it. Now, your husband, Sean Duffy's a congressman, and he was backed by Governor Palin early on in his first run for the House. That was a big deal for you guys, wasn't it?
It was. In fact, he was the very first person in that sort of that 2010 wave, the first member, or I should say candidate for Congress to be endorsed by Sarah Palin. So it wasn't just her endorsement, but it was the fact that he was the first one. And so I finally got a chance to, thank her in person and say, listen, you really changed that race. I mean, it truly did. I mean, there was clearly some momentum going on, but she really put us on the map, and people who were wondering if this was for real or not, because the story was so, well, I should say it was a little bit Alaska-like. It was like this lumberjack story, and, my husband's a three-time world champion speed climber, lumberjack, and there were lots of references to lumberjack and timber and bringing the axe to Washington. And Sarah, in fact, when I saw her in Walmart, said, listen, how could I resist this story? It was so good. And as it turned out, thanks to her and so many people that came in and supported us in 2010, it was a very unlikely victory, especially at the time that Sarah endorsed. And in the end, Sean took the seat from a 42-year incumbent Democrat, probably the third most powerful person in Washington. He was the chairman of appropriations. So it was a really courageous move on her part. She was the first big public figure to come out and endorse, and many other wonderful endorsements came after. But I really credit her with being a pioneer, if you will, in that race.
Well, and Sean's done just a tremendous job, and like usual, someone who Palin backs, really comes through. Now, at the Wisconsin stop, what was the feel there? I know in Pennsylvania when we were there, people were just all smiles, and this was despite the long lines and everything else. They all just wanted that chance to see Governor Palin and not just get their book signed, but really to thank her. Did you get that feel from those in line in Wisconsin as well?
Yes, exactly. It was exactly that. People were just in really good spirits. Conservatives, we don't push or shove. Everybody's in line and being very nice, and everybody came with their books. Like I said, there was a run on the books, but everybody came holding their books and wanting to get her autograph. And again, it was just wonderful to see that this was a town that, despite I think some intentions on the part of local media to sort of dampen her visit, it clearly didn't have that effect. And you could see that just in the demographics of the people there. I mean, it was mostly women. Although Sarah let me know that a couple men wearing Duffy for Congress hats had come in. We have these camo Duffy for Congress hats, and I gave her one too. So there were men there too, but I just was really, touched by just how many women were there, how many people relate to her, how many women feel a connection to her, whether they're at-home moms or working moms. They're sort of, I just think she just is every woman. She really is, and in so many ways, that's the kind of demographic that you saw there.
And is that what resonates with you most about Governor Palin? Is it her role as a mom? Because I know that's something you take great pride in.
I remember very specifically, and I told her this when we had a chance. I got a chance to actually talk to her for a little longer. I remember seeing an interview with her, sort of when I kind of knew about her before she was actually nominated to be the vice presidential candidate. I'd heard about her, that she had 5 kids, and she was this really interesting governor. But then I saw an interview with her on Oprah. And in the interview, and I think it kind of went past everybody, like all the, the big media talking heads, it sort of went over their heads. She was talking to Oprah, and she said, I remember when I used to watch you when I was an at-home mom. And, it just was one of those comments that she just went on to tell the story. But it really struck me that, I mean, you could never imagine, for example, a Hillary Clinton saying, "That's when I was an at-home mom," and so it really was this new thing that, she embodied, I think, the fruition of what the feminists claimed that they really wanted to achieve, and yet she gets slammed by those very people for actually having done that, and that is to have had all these different roles in her life, to be totally unapologetic for those roles, whether it's, at-home mom and then governor and mayor and juggling it all. And then I also think there's an interesting irony in, again, I always think of Hillary and Sarah as this, very interesting contrast between what it means to be a conservative woman and what it means to be a liberal woman. And in Hillary's case, not only can we never imagine her bouncing a baby on her hip after getting, nominated to be vice president and doing it just so naturally and embracing her maternal self and her femininity in that way. But also, if you looked when Sarah was holding that baby that night where she gave that speech and the whole place was electric at the Republican convention. But there was Todd sort of, very manly, very secure, just, letting his wife absorb the spotlight and just sort of being himself. And, at the same time, Hillary, I think, was, might have even lost her bid to become the Democratic nominee because her husband couldn't, stand letting her be in the spotlight. So I just think there's a lot of irony that, this truly emancipated woman, this truly, egalitarian, supportive relationship that is supposedly what feminists really, said that we were going to aspire towards, and yet it's embodied in this conservative, gun-toting, pro-life, former beauty queens, all these things that they abhor about middle America, Sarah sort of embodies. And I think that's where a lot of the anger comes from on the left towards her. It wasn't supposed to be that way, in other words. It was supposed to be Hillary as fully emancipated, example of feminism. And in reality, it's Sarah Palin.
Absolutely, and she does it all, and it has them jealous. It has them, looking for things to pick apart with her. We see the hypocrisy every day. This Martin Bashir nonsense. Everyone running and hiding. Because the target is Governor Palin. So instead of the actual words, they worry about who the target is. Whereas the same network, fired Don Imus for lesser things, suspended Alec Baldwin and others for lesser things, but with one of the weirdest and grossest things you've ever heard, they don't do a thing. So, we say, well, Rachel, it was quite a first leg of this book tour for the governor, and I'm sure the next leg will be just as impressive. And we thank you so much, and best of luck with the Libre Initiative. How can people find out more? You have a website?
Yes, please go to our website, www.thelibreInitiative.com, and we have really great videos, things that you can pass on to your friends, whether they're Hispanic or not. I think we have the right message for conservatives to give to Hispanics, and so I encourage everyone to go on our site.
Wonderful. Well, it was a pleasure having you here today. Regards to Sean, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
You too. Thanks so much for having me on.
Rachel Campos Duffy on the Palin Update. Visit thelibreInitiative.com. That's THELIBRE initiative.com. So after Martin Bashir's sick, weird comments about Governor Palin, still no repercussions from MSNBC. Silence from many, the network very hypocritical, yet Governor Palin has handled it all with class. Then Cher opened her mouth again, using the C word against the governor. No one knows what Cher's actual problem is, though clearly it's severe. But Palin's family took the high road. Chuck Heath Jr., Palin's brother, wrote, quote, "Dear Cher, I was sorry to hear that you tweeted out such vile comments about my little sister yesterday. It's sad because Sarah has never had a harsh word to say about you. In fact, our grandmother was one of your biggest fans. Have a good night. Chuck." That's all. No foul language, no nastiness. Governor Palin then featured her brother's comments on social media. And Bristol Palin also weighed in, wondering why Cher would say such things about her mom, since Bristol treated Chaz Bono with nothing but respect on Dancing with the Stars. Bristol said people like Cher are bullies. To see any of the governor's posts in their entirety, visit Sarah Palin's Facebook page and follow her on Twitter at Sarah Palin USA.
It's time for Commonwealth Common Sense with Susan Stimson and Kevin Scholla.
Susan Stimson, hello.
Hello, Kevin. Great to be with you as we head into this Thanksgiving week.
Yes, Thanksgiving coming up this week, of course, and a lot to be thankful for, no doubt. And I know that you have a special take on things this week because of something your son and your husband are getting the opportunity to do.
As we speak, they are camping at Jamestown and celebrating with the Scout troop and doing their own Thanksgiving dinner. And I just thought that it might be appropriate as we're headed into Thanksgiving to talk about what really happened at Jamestown, the first permanent settlement in the United States, and it's actually where the real first Thanksgiving was held.
Well, I mean, just such an awesome opportunity for your family to be in that area and be able to do that. But, you know, I do think so often, you know, I know it sounds kind of cliche, and we talk about saying, you know, George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King. We say people's names and say they'd roll over in their graves if they saw some of the things that are going on today. But, you know, well before the Thanksgiving season, I've thought of the Pilgrims so many times and just thought of all that they went through, persecution, trying to be able to be free here religiously and in other ways. And then some of the things that are happening in Washington today, it just, you know, it's unbelievable. You can't say enough about what was done, and you don't want their efforts to go to waste.
That's right. And if you go back to the original landing there of the 104 settlers who came over from England, they came into Jamestown, but they did come on a mission. And there were two competing missions. One, it was for gold, it was for money with the Virginia Company, but they also had a mission as well to consecrate it to God. And there was a reverend who was on the ship. There were three of them that left England, and his name was Reverend Robert Hunt. And the seas were so tumultuous and so awful that everyone was very, very sick, including Reverend Hunt. And they were considering turning back. And he urged everyone to keep going. He was very ill himself. So his leadership among the three ships was quite substantial. And after months of a very, very difficult crossing over into the new land, they came into the Chesapeake Bay, and they called it Cape Henry. But Reverend Hunt was able to convince them for 3 days to wait, to be repentant and contrite, so that when they walked on the shore, that they would have the right spirit and the right attitude about that. And I just think about that horrible trip that they had coming across the seas, and they were willing to follow his leadership and to do that before they went on to land. And then as they came onto land, the one thing the Virginia Company leadership had insisted that they brought with them was a wooden cross, and they planted that into the ground, and they consecrated the continent to the glory of God. And what I think that means to us today is what it meant then. It's freedom. So they were dedicating it to the glory of God, but there were also competing things that had happened on the way over. There's greed, there's selfishness, there was fighting, many more challenges as they settled the colony. But the overarching thing that happened when they first came to shore was they consecrated it to God. And so I think that we've seen a lot of those struggles, you know, the horrible struggle of slavery and all of the other things that have happened in America. But at the root of it is your freedom to worship your God as you see fit, and it's not to force anything on anyone, but that's also the beauty of God's relationship with us. He gives us free will to worship Him, and I think that we need to remember that, and I think that that's been part of the blessing on our nation, is that we're honoring God, and my concern is that we're not properly thankful for all that He has given us, and if we're not careful, we may lose those freedoms.
Well, that's such an amazing story, and I mean, I'm just thankful that your son and all these scouts and those who are involved are able to hear this, and certainly something that I hope people will be able to spread the message of things of that nature, along, of course, with the turkey and the cranberries and the whole thing.
That's right. It's a great time to just be with family and to just be thankful for what we do have.
Well, absolutely, and you're speaking about God's power and love. As my 5-year-old daughter puts it, she says He loves us all the time, even my little brother. So.
Oh, that's the best way to put it, right? But
even when he's doing certain things. So, but listen, Susan, we really appreciate that. That is a tremendous take, especially for this week. And happy Thanksgiving to you and your family. And we're very thankful for Susan Stimson here on SaraNet Radio.
Great, Kevin. Thanks. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Susan Stimson in Virginia. More Commonwealth Common Sense next week. Now, our weekly commentary, Steel Resolve. Here's Sarah Steelman.
Thanks, Kevin. Once again this week, President Obama has let his true colors shine through. Usually his actions make me mad, but this week his actions left me feeling very sad for our country. Tuesday marked the 150th anniversary of Gettysburg, and yet Obama declined going to the ceremony. Abraham Lincoln sacrificed his life for the cause of freedom and equality in this nation, and President Obama can't attend the ceremony because of Obamacare website problems? That is very sad indeed. And 2 days later, President Obama, Harry Reid, and most of the Senate Democrats continued to dismantle the institution that used to be known as the U.S. Senate. They got rid of the filibuster for certain confirmation votes. The filibuster allows the minority to have a voice. It enables the Senate to be a more deliberative body. It gives each senator the power to represent his constituents' interests. It forces compromise. As a former state senator serving in the minority, I frequently use the filibuster to kill bad laws or amendments and force a reasoned compromise. Then we Republicans took over the majority in Missouri, and I watched my fellow Republicans eliminate the filibuster. The Missouri Senate is now highly partisan and ineffective. I never supported it. Instead, the U.S. Senate should reform the use of the filibuster by requiring senators to be physically present on the floor and support their position, rather than filing a letter objecting to an appointment or a bill. That would force public debate rather than backroom deals and useless obstruction. It would be used less frequently and not abused by both sides. It's been a sad week for the Republic. This is Sarah Steelman for SaraNet Radio.
Tune in again next week for another segment of Steel Resolve right here on the Palin Update. The Palin Update, including Commonwealth Common Sense and Steel Resolve, is on demand and available for download. So just head to SaraNetRadio.net, pick the show you want to hear, and you can listen anywhere, anytime. Well, that'll just about do it for this edition of the Palin Update on SaraNet Radio. Visit SaraNetRadio.net for continuing coverage of Governor Palin. Also, follow along on Twitter at SaraNet Radio, at Kevin Scholla, at Susan B. Stimson, and at Sarah_Steelman. For a full recap of everything you hear on the Palin Update, plus more news regarding Governor Palin, head to our Facebook page, like SaraNet Radio. Also, like Kevin Scholla on Facebook. Palin Patriots is our feature on SaraNet.net. There you can check out the writings from our great panel of contributors, including Martha Zoller and Bader Carmoot. And I'm doing some writing for Breitbart News. Just go to Breitbart.com and search Kevin Scholla. I want to thank Sarah Steelman, Susan Stimson, and everyone here at SaraNet Radio. Thanks to Rachel Campos Duffy, and thank you for listening today. Please be sure to join us again next time for another edition of the Palin Update. I'm Kevin Scholla. Have a pleasant day, and happy Thanksgiving.